My name is Courtney Hughes. Most of my friends call me Sunny, and this is my transparency by testimony. That's a loaded question, to be honest. First and foremost, I am a child of God. I am a mother, a daughter, a sister, a cousin, a friend. I am a walking contradiction of God's grace. I feel like we all are in different ways. I am grit, determination, love. I'm fire at the same time too. I would say the biggest test in my life was having my daughter at 25 weeks, which is terrifying. Having a child that small, or like the size of my hand, is bigger than she is, with a 30% chance of living. That coming through that and going through all of that still to this day is my biggest test, because we're not done. I went in for a routine checkup, and it's like, can you lay on your side? And I'm like, this doesn't normally happen, and then she goes to get the doctor, and I'm like, what's going on? Nobody is telling me anything. Our appointments don't normally go this way. And the doctor told me that my blood pressure was really high. That's all she said. She just said, your blood pressure is high. We're going to have you lay on your side for about 10 or 15 more minutes, and then we'll come and check it again. So they come and check it again. And then she's like, we're going to have to admit you. But nobody would ever tell me like what it was. And so I'm terrified. The nurse is rushing me to labor and delivery. She said, our NICU isn't equipped for a baby born this early. So do you want to go to Medical City, Dallas, or do you want to go to the one in Plano? And something was like, Dallas. So I was like, Dallas. So I get in there and I asked her, I was like, and I'm crying. I'm like, I don't have the words. I was like, are you a Christian? And she's like, yeah. I said, I don't have the words. I need you to pray. Like, be me for a second. I get transferred to the Dallas location. I'm hooked up to machines. They're, catheter. I'm getting pumped with, magnesium to keep me from having seizures. And this is my first time ever being hospitalized. I'd never been sick, never spent the night, and nobody is telling me. And so there was a NICU doctor who came in, and I really appreciated his honesty, because it's what I needed. He comes in, he's talking to me. I'm like, okay, nobody is telling me anything. I need to know what's going on. And he says, well, your blood pressure is high. I said, that I know, but I don't know. And then he showed me my chart. And you're talking 240s, 250s, 260s, over 100, 110, 120. I was in straight heart attack and stroke range, and I felt fine. That's when I knew, like, this is bad. And I was like, okay, so what are we doing? And he tells me that he's waiting until either I'm in distress or the baby is. She needs as much time as we can give her. At that moment, the mother kicks in, where it's like, well, it doesn't matter what happens to me. Facing your own mortality as well as that of your child. You feel helpless. Like you can't do it, I can't fix her. I can't trade places. And as a parent, that's something I don't wish on any parent, to see your kid hooked up to tubes and machines that are keeping them alive. Every minute of every day was different. Days where she was struggling to breathe. And I remember the time she coded. Those are those are things I'll never forget. She was in the NICU for 5 months. And so I say all the time, God knew I needed Dell before I knew I needed Dell. Because they have this wonderful culture that allows people to work from wherever. And so as a single mother, I felt blessed that I never had to choose between being a parent present in the hospital with my kid and the other side of parenthood, which is taking care of them. And so I was able to work remote from the hospital. The moment I got hospitalized, my manager and the executive I supported were like, you do whatever you need to do. You work from wherever you need to work. As long as the work gets done, it doesn't matter. You take as much time off as you needed. They also allowed me to actually use my mat leave for when she came home, because what was the point in me having maternity leave when she's in the hospital when I could actually work, when all of the work is going to be done on my part when she gets home. And so I was able to do that. Her coming home was scary because you have the safety net of the hospital, in a sense, the doctors and nurses that are always there. So if something were to happen, there's that safety net there. And nobody really prepares you to come home with a premature child who has medical needs. She came home on oxygen, as well as like a pulse ox that had to measure the oxygen throughout her body at all times. And when I mean that thing would go off in the middle of the night, I felt like I didn't realize it until after the fact of going to therapy, where it feels like you're in war. Because the minute that thing goes off, your body is just tense. You're always expecting something, like never really being calm or at peace and at ease with things, because you're constantly on edge. And so it was a lot of learning. No sleep. She had GERD really bad. So she was throwing up after every feeding. And then of course we had a hard time with feeding due to the breathing tube in the NICU. I mean, it keeps them alive, but at the same time it's foreign. And for so long, if it's down there past a certain time, they start to become aversive. And she was orally aversive, so it took a really long time for her to even take a bottle, and then she regressed. She wouldn't do a pacifier. She wouldn't suck on things. Like, she didn't want anything in or around her mouth, and then she ended up having to get a feeding tube. I didn't realize how bad I was until I started hearing hospital beeps in the day. And at night, I was like, it's just a nightmare. I could easily brush that one off. But during the day, I was like, Lord, I know I'm not crazy. And I would just ignore it. And then it would keep happening. And I talked to a friend of mine. She was like, okay, you have to go talk to somebody now. I'm like, nah, I'm fine. She's like, no, you haven't been fine. And once I became honest with myself, I wasn't. And I've always been big on my portrayal being authentic. Like, it's actually me. It's not a version of me that I let you see or small parts, but that was a part of me I had a really, really hard time like being honest about. And it was in one of those things, in those prayer moments, where God told me that it's not in being perfect that people relate to you, that they're drawn to you. It's in the broken pieces that we see ourselves in other people. Not in the facade of I have it all together, but the fact that I'm broken, I'm struggling, and I'm still valuable, and I'm still loved, and still have the capability to love and show up while I'm trying to figure these things out. There wasn't room. There wasn't room when I'm, juggling 14 different doctors and therapists. I have a career. I have a kid to take care of. When she had her feeding tube, I would feed her in the morning at 9. And if I had a town hall that I had to run, I would take her to daycare early. The town hall would be over at 8:30. I'd drive to the daycare, tube feed her, drive back to work. I'd have to go back for lunch, and then I have to go back to work, and then I have to go back at 3. Because that was one of the things. The daycare was like the only daycare that would take her. We'll take her, but we won't mess with her feeding tube. So all of her tube feedings, I had to go and give. I was leaving work every day to do it. I felt naked, like spiritually, emotionally, mentally, like I felt naked, like I couldn't cover myself. I felt exposed, like, because I'm grappling and I'm with the Lord, and He sees it anyway. He sees how vulnerable you are. He sees how broken you are. And as a Christian, for me, it's like I haven't done anything. Like, why and my mom, I don't know the answer, but you have to talk to him. She was like, this is your cross to carry. I'm like, but I don't want to carry it. Like, I'm not strong enough to carry it. I said, that's what it is. I'm not strong enough to carry it. And she's like, but that's the beauty. You don't carry it by yourself. And I heard him clear when he said, if I heal her, but not in the way you're asking, will you still praise me? And I couldn't answer. We ask for healing and deliverance, but what if His way, the how that He does it, isn't the how we're praying for? Is He still good? And as a mother, I couldn't answer it. The sweetest little girl, absolute doll. Not just appearance, but her heart is so pure. If I ever needed a reminder of God's grace and mercy, it's her. A miracle, it's her. 30% chance of living. She might not walk. She might not talk. She might always have a feeding tube. Everything they said she wouldn't do, God has done. Just 2 years ago, she barely had any words, and now she's like talking up a storm and having a feeding tube. And to hear her say, this tastes so good. Or, Mom, can you make some bacon and pancakes? Those are things I didn't know would happen. Started like little support groups for mothers I'd meet at speech therapy, at feeding therapy, at the doctor's offices, and talk honestly about how we're doing. I feel like we are so quick to say, I'm okay. How are you doing? Oh, I'm okay. But it's like, you're not. You are far from okay. And being honest about my experience, has helped some of them get help. Our testimonies aren't for us. They're actually for non-believers. And it's for Him to use us for His glory. It's not us at all. But I can say I feel it's for us too. I feel like that those heavy crosses, the big ones, are equivalent to a potter's wheel. You don't carry something that heavy and come out the same when you're done. You become more of who He needs you to be and less of who you want it to be. That's how I feel.